56. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our little Bible study. We're going to be in Genesis chapter 4 this evening. And as is our custom, we are going to review Genesis chapter 3, which was, I boldly state, one of the most important chapters in all the Bible. Because why?
The fall of man.
It chronicles the fall of man. What is the fall of man?
It's about sin.
It's when sin enters the world. It's when sin enters the world. I mean, it's the only reason why Jesus Christ came, lived a perfect life, was beaten, crucified, buried, and had a rise from the grave, is because of sin. If Adam and Eve had obeyed God, and then throughout all of mankind, sin doesn't enter the world. But this is when sin enters the world. How did sin enter the world?
Through deception.
Right, who specifically disobeyed?
The woman.
It was started with Eve, right? But do we hold Adam accountable for that?
Yes.
Why?
He didn't listen.
Well, he didn't protect her.
Yeah.
All right. Adam was the one that, ordered by God to make sure that the rules were followed. He did make sure Eve followed the rules. All right. And then Adam took full responsibility, right? My wife's laughing. He did not take full responsibility. What did he do?
He blamed the woman.
He blamed Eve and he blamed...
The serpent.
Nope. Eve's the only one that blames the serpent. Yeah, that's right. Adam blames God. Yeah, let's go back and look.
Oh, yeah.
So we're in Genesis chapter 3. This is just a part of our review, everybody. In Genesis chapter 3, verse 12. So we're in Genesis 3, verse 12. This is after God has come and caught them and begins asking. The man said, verse 12, the woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree and I ate it. All right? So there it is.
That's right. It's God's fault.
It's God's fault.
For giving him the woman.
That's right, which he has already determined was good for her, that he needed her. All right. So this is how sin enters. Adam and Eve are driven out of the garden. All right. They cannot and no longer have access to the tree of life, which is what keeps them sustained, so that they can have, they can live forever. Other things happen. The ground is cursed. Adam is already called that he's going to be responsible for working the ground. He's got to work. That's still part of the creation before the fall. But now there's going to be thorns and thistles. It's going to be really hard. What happens to the woman? What's going to happen to her?
Childbirth.
Well, I think she was always supposed to have childbirth.
Yeah, but not
Yeah.
But now it would be increased in pain. All right? Increased in pain. What happens to the serpent?
He has to crawl on the ground.
And eat dirt the rest of his existence as well. So this is where snakes become. All right, it's believed by a lot of theologians that the serpent was actually a very beautiful being. Eve is not surprised to hear it talking to her, and this is who Satan works through in order to be able to cause the fall. And then God makes a promise. He makes a promise. He makes a promise in the second half of verse 15. So let me give you the whole verse. This is chapter 3, verse 15. And I will put, this is what he's saying to the snake, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. And then he prophesies. He says, he will, that's future tense, crush your head, and you will strike his heel. This is, many theologians believe, is where Satan eventually is going to run into Jesus. And that he is going to harm Jesus, but Jesus is going to crush him. Baruch Hashem, Baruch Atah Adonai. Praise the name of God. All right. So, all right, any questions about chapter 3? And I know from my group here, Mike has this thing recorded if you want to review it. But it's an absolutely very powerful chapter. And it's one that everybody who studies the Bible, like you guys are, should just know intimately. All righty? All right, so now that they've been driven out of the garden, now that God has clothed them, I mean, we've had the first sacrifice. Remember, he covers them with skins. That means some animal had to die. So now we have death has entered, all these things like that. Fortunately, everybody learns their lessons, and everything gets so much better, right? No. See, Terry's really picking up on this. She knows that pretty much anytime I say, right, think the exact opposite. No, in this chapter, we're going to go into murder. I mean, it's very, very different. So we're now in Genesis chapter 4, and let's begin in verse 1. Adam lay with his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. So there's the firstborn male child. Very important. She said, with the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man. Later, she gave birth to his brother, Abel. Now watch how fast time jumps. Abel's just born, right? But now he's a shepherd. All right? Now he's a ranch hand. Now Abel kept flocks, and Cain worked the soil. He's now a farmer. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. But Abel brought fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel in his offering, but on Cain in his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Then the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must master it. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, let's go out to the field. And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, where is your brother Abel? I don't know, he replied. Am I my brother's keeper? The Lord said, what have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth. Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. But the Lord said to him, not so. If anyone kills Cain, he will suffer vengeance 7 times over. Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that anyone who found him would kill him. So Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain lay with his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son, Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad was the father of Mehujael, and Mehujael was the father of Methushael, and Methushael was the father of Lamech. Lamech married 2 women, one named Adah and the other Zillah. Adah gave birth to Jabal. He was the father of those who live in tents and raise livestock. His brother's name was Jubal, and he was the father of all who play the harp and flute. Zillah also had a son, Tubal-Cain, who forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron. Tubal-Cain's sister was Naamah. Lamech said to his wives, Adah and Zillah, listen to me. Wives of Lamech, hear my words. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times. Adam lay with his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth, saying, God has granted me another child in place of Abel. Since Cain killed Abel, Seth also had a son, and his name was Enosh. At that time, men began to call on the name of the Lord. Wow, did we just cover a lot of ground? All right, boy, that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
All right. All right, everything needs to be taken in the context of Adam and Eve and what has happened in the garden. But a lot of time has passed. A lot of time has passed. Things are very different on the earth. All right, there's still no rain. The earth is still misted. All right, there's water coming up from underneath the ground that's keeping the earth green. They are starting to eat animals. There's other things that are going on. All right, but just keep this in mind. It's a very different time. They're aging very slowly. the curse just builds over the millennia. All right? So these folks are still, and you see, we're going to talk about ages here soon. All right? They're really getting old. All right? But, I mean, they live into their hundreds and hundreds. All right? So just as we talk about this tonight, keep that in mind and how different things really were back then. Okay? All right. So let's begin with verse 1. Here's our first birth. Look at the attitude of Eve. Adam lay with his wife, Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said what?
With the help of the Lord.
All right. With the help of the Lord. So she's not grieving what's happened to her. All right. This is the beginning of maternity. All right. You want to talk about some of our most sacred elements of humanity? Maternity. Look at how much emphasis God's putting on it. Now, I'm making this whole point for one reason only. As you know, I'm very heavily involved with the pro-life movement. I'm one of the leaders of it here in New England. Okay, I work very hard with pregnancy resource centers to help women who are facing an unplanned pregnancy choose life for their unborn child and not abortion. Maternity is obviously highly sacred to God. And I want to thank Eve for praising God for the ability to bear children. All right, so it should always be looked upon as something wonderful, even in the most horrible situations. All right, there are horrible situations. There's rape, there's incest. All right, there are children who aren't quite up to our standards. There's Down syndrome children, because we can find out about that now in the womb. But it does not mean that we should destroy them.
No.
Right? You know, Gail and I have a pastor and wife friend of ours up in Boston that had two very beautiful, healthy daughters, and then she got pregnant with their son. And they found out that he was Down syndrome. And they chose to give that child life. And would you say that child's a real burden on everybody and hasn't really blessed anybody?
Sometimes they are a blessing.
No, in this case, this kid is a major blessing. Josiah is an awesome kid. Yeah. So very grateful. Now, mind you, he's going to need to be cared for to some extent to the rest of his life. But what a joy he really is. All right. And we're very grateful for him. All right. So with the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man. And then later she gave birth to his brother Abel. And then what happens, folks? We go right into adulthood. Zing. So in your mind, understand that Adam and Eve could still be producing plenty of children.
Yeah.
All right? Because they don't talk about Seth being born until after Abel's killed. But it doesn't mean that there aren't other children being born. It doesn't say anything either way. But there's room for all kinds of things to happen.
Especially because we know that a lot of years have gone by, and if she had two in a row, just close together,
Right.
it's very sure that.
What is the world
She
record
could
for
have-
number of children born to a single woman? Anybody know? I really don't know. I probably would have.
Well, my Aunt Annie married a man that was one of 25 children.
One of 25
So I
children.
bet there's more than that.
20, but not that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
That'd be in the Guinness Book of World Records.
It would be in the Guinness Book of World Records. You can find it on Wikipedia real
And it's
fast.
like, how many sets of twins?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
None.
None? Straight through, 25.
Small.
All right. So,
That just made me mad. I was really mad. I said, he thought she was a baby machine.
oh, yeah, all right, I understand. That, no, they, well, I can tell you, I've actually said the
I
opposite
said
to my
she
wife.
wasn't supposed to have them.
Yeah.
She probably wouldn't have had them.
Right, right.
Some women don't have any.
Yep.
My aunt didn't have any.
Yep, yep,
She wanted them, but
yep.
she didn't have any.
Now we're back into, again, how powerful maternity is.
Yeah.
All right. So here we're talking about, right after the fall, we're talking about whether the curse is just starting to grow on the earth. Women have the ability to, in this case, I think really she had the ability to bear many children. All right. And so again, I don't want to speculate too much, but that is pure speculation. But when people ask, where did all these other people come from? Because you're going to see that in a few moments. Where does all these other people come from?
They had to either come from Adam and Eve or God placed other
Right.
people somewhere else.
Right, or else God had created other people.
Because it doesn't say either way.
Well, that's right. And there are other things that could have happened too. But
Further on, it is mentioned of another tribe.
oh yeah, no, we're going to talk about it right here in this chapter. We're going to get right to it in a second. So there is a possibility that that was going on. All right, so now we're in the second part of verse 2. Now Abel kept flocks, which probably means he was a shepherd, and Cain worked the soil, farmer. That's going to be important, because remember what curse God puts on Cain. In the course of time, this is much later. Now watch this. Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. But Abel brought fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. What are the differences?
One brought the best and one brought not the best.
Not the first fruits. This goes all the way to the New Testament.
To get the good stuff.
Yep.
Plus it also says some.
Right.
So
I'm saying some
Cain
of the
brought
fruits. Right.
Probably like only what he had to bring,
Yep.
and Abel brought plentiful.
He brought the very first ones he had. So the way this would work in the Old Testament and eventually in the New Testament is that the firstborn of your flock you give to God. That's what eventually would be the law. All right? And then you get to keep the rest. All right? Cain is not doing that. All right? Cain is not doing that. Also, Abel is giving the fat portions. He's giving the best, the most savory, the tastiest portions.
The sirloin.
Yep, the sirloin. Okay?
It's a sign of selfishness, too.
Yeah, yep. See, here we go. That's the original sin, selfishness. We're seeing that. All right? Yeah, See, it's exactly right,
When you
Lynn.
just read it fast, you don't even think about that, but when you're studying it,
Yeah, different.
Yep. And especially when you apply it to your own life. Because I get caught up in these things too.
we all do.
That's right. And again, that's important. I think God would say, if Jesus would say with us right tonight, he'd say, guys, do me a favor, just kind of see yourself as Cain.
So that's already a sin already.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's already a sin. All right. Again, I argue that the word worship doesn't mean singing. I think it's a subset of worship. Praise. Singing of praise. I don't think that's worship. I think the church gets caught up in that thinking that worship is singing. No. Worship is giving God your very best in all you do.
Studying.
When you study, you should do it for God's glory and you should give your best to it. All right? When you do anything, all right, that is going to reflect on God, do it to your very best of your ability. By the way, that's hard. That's not easy. But that's okay. If it was easy, everybody would do it. But it's hard. So when we love other people, love to the best of our ability. I think that would warm Jesus' heart. All right? When we sacrifice for the good of others, do it to the best of our ability. Again, that's the glory. So that's what's happening here. Abel is doing things to the best of his ability, and Cain is not. All right. So as a result, the Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering, he did not look with favor. Fortunately, Cain said, all right, great, I'm going to go to the Lord and find out what I'm doing wrong. Right? Don't shake your head. Yes, Mike.
It came to him.
No.
It came to him.
Cain was what? What was Cain? Cain, this is in verse 5.
Cain was the
Angry.
Cain was, did yours say angry or very angry?
Very angry.
Very angry.
Very angry, okay? Not exactly a powerful adjective, all right? But there's a reason why it's there. By the way, is anger a sin?
I would think so.
I got a possibility over here. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, probably.
All right, Terry, any idea?
Guess so, yeah.
Guess so, Mike?
Well, you could have a reason for being angry.
Right. So we always like to land. Is being angry a sin, yes or
Not all
no?
the time. It could
Not all the
be,
time.
you can't-
So the answer is, right, so you're saying 50-50. Gail, you want to help us out with this. Is anger a sin?
No.
No, it's not a sin. The Bible says it specifically. It says be angry and sin not. All right, the idea here is what you're just saying.
Right, what
Is-
you do with that anger.
or why you're angry. All right, you could be in the biblical term, okay, is righteously indignant. You can be righteously indignant. Okay, how do we all feel about this young reporter being beheaded? Are we angry?
Oh, yeah, we sure are.
We are. All right. We're very angry. Our president was so angry after he talked about it, he literally walked right onto the golf course. Sorry, guys, that's my one and only talk about politics, all right? But to show you how angry he was, he couldn't wait to get right out onto the golf course. But we can be angry. That's righteous indignation. We have a right to be angry. Does Cain have a right to be angry?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I think the Bible tells it.
He did wrong.
Yeah, and it wasn't like he did something terrible. He's obviously his heart's not in the right place.
Right.
So in verse 6, the Lord goes to him. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must master it." There it is. There's God speaking to us over the millennia. All right? Same thing for all of us. When we get angry, when we really don't have a right to be, okay, sin is crouching at the door, and we must master it. So again, this is where we have to watch whether or not we're approaching things as God would have us to do that. But you must master it.
I
Verse,
would say anger's a wasted emotion.
it can be. It can be a very wasted emotion.
They get angry, I say it's a wasted emotion.
Right,
You're
right,
just wasting your time being angry.
right, right.
Well, even Jesus he was angry
Sure
in the
did.
temple. So anger couldn't be a sin because
Right.
he was sinless.
He condemned a tree. He was so angry.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, so you can be angry, but the Bible says it specifically, be angry, but sin not. So it's okay. But the key is why you're angry. And you can be indignant, righteously indignant. All right. But
It can be a waste of time because
Sure.
if you're angry and you stay angry,
Yeah.
then you're living in the problem and not looking for a solution.
somebody cuts me off on the way to work, and as a result, I'm late. All right. I'm angry. All right. But just like you're saying, I get rid of that real quickly because I can't do anything but hurt myself. And even if the person was right there in front of me who cut me off, what would I do? Sir, you cut me off. I'll go screw yourself. All right, well, have a good day. That's it. That's all God would want me to do. By the way, while we're on the topic, forgiveness simply means giving up your right to hold that against somebody. That's what forgiveness is. All you're doing is giving up the right. That follows, again, the concept of righteous indignation. So now we're in verse 8. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. So he deceives him. These are men of the field. All right? Most likely it's Cain's farm, because that's when we talk about fields, but it could have been any place. All right? Normally when you're a flock, you're out in a different place altogether, but you're in a pasture or something like that. But in this case, he takes him out, deceives him, lies, because he intends to kill him. Takes him out there, attacks and kills him. And so, hey Colleen, how's everybody?
Oh, the windows, yeah.
If you remember in the garden after Adam and Eve fall, God was walking in the cool of the day. All right? God walks amongst them. Well, here is God, still seeming to be amongst them. In verse 9, then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" Now, God is doing the same thing he did back in Genesis chapter 3. He's asking a question he already knows the answer to. Okay? Cain is not smart enough to know how to answer truthfully. And what does he say? Well, first thing he says is what? I don't know, he replied.
Am I my brother's keeper?
Okay, now, think about that one for a little while. Am I my brother's keeper? Now, God doesn't. We get God's response, but boy, I'll tell you, I know what God really wants us to say. Really wants us, for us to respond with.
Yeah, we are.
Yes, we are. Not only that, another response to Cain would be, "Are you your brother's judge?" Because he judged Abel, and he became the executioner. All in one movement. So, yeah, I don't know, he replied, he lies. Am I my brother's keeper? And the answer is yes, you are your brother's keeper. So in verse 10, the Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." That's prophecy. That's the first prophet in all the Bible is Abel, his blood crying from the ground. So now God punishes Cain. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opens its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. He will no longer be able to farm. So his livelihood is over with. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth. Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. All right, so let's pause for a second. First of all, do you think this is a just punishment for him? By today's standards?
Probably would have killed him.
Today, right?
Yeah.
It's life imprisonment
Yep.
or, the death chamber. Right? It's that's the way it is. By the way, that's based on God's law.
Sending him off somewhere in another land.
In this case, he's just got to let him wander the earth alive
And alone.
and alone. Why do you think that is?
He can suffer.
He's going to suffer, but wouldn't he be suffering greatly if he was locked away for the rest of his life or executed?
I don't know, being alone is kind of a lot of suffering.
Right. And under threat. He'd be under a lot of threat,
Yeah.
right? Any chance to think God's trying to use him as a message to everybody? Set him as an example? This is what happens to you if you kill? All right. So that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing that God is punishing him, and that it is something that where God does spare his life. Today, this is now verse 14. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. So he's actually lamenting the idea that he's not going to be with God anymore. He's lost fellowship with God. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. But the Lord said to him, not so. If anyone kills Cain, he will suffer vengeance 7 times over. By the way, that's spread out to everybody because we're going to find out, we're going to hear that again. His descendants know this. Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. So Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. And we've been joking about the movie, East of Eden. Okay, so there were the 2 brothers, right, and his father is, in a situation there. And so this is where the term really actually comes from, being driven out east of Eden. This is Cain and his brother. And you can see in the movie again, you'll see that, how the brothers are set up. Verse 17, Cain lay with his wife. Wow, so Cain gets to continue on. He gets to still have a family. All right, he's got a wife. So he's not exactly alone. Cain lay with his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad was the father of Mahujael, and Mahujael was the father of Methushael, and Methushael was the father of Lamech. Lamech married 2 women, one named Ada and another Zillah. Anybody have an issue with that?
It's not the way you do it now.
Yeah, and that wasn't God's original plan.
That was not God's original plan, because you can go back and look at the creation, and it says specifically, should a woman leave her family, and a man leave his home, and shall become one flesh. That's it. Done. One flesh. They're together. They're one flesh. That's it. We are not called to have multiple wives. All right? So Lamech married the 2 women. Ada gave birth to Jabal, and he was the father of those who live in tents and raise livestock. All right, so here we are again with more ranchers. His brother's name was Jabal. He was the father of all who played the harp and flute. So this is with the beginning of music. Zillah also had a son, Tubal-Cain, who forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron. So this is a craftsman. Tubal-Cain's sister was Naamah. Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, listen to me. Wives of Lamech, hear my words. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times. All right, so not only is he disobeying God by marrying 2 women, he has also killed a young man just for upsetting him, okay, or maybe hurting him somehow. He is proud of it. He is bragging about it. And he is claiming for God that if God would avenge Cain 7 times, God has to avenge him 77 7 times. So this is not a pleasant person. This guy is doing things his way. By the way, the Hebrew word lamech means fool. Okay? Just for your information. All right, we're in verse 25. Adam lay with his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth, saying, God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him. Seth also had a son, and he named him Enosh. And that time men began to call on the name of the Lord. What does that mean? To call on the name of the Lord.
I guess they were taught to believe in God along the way.
They were praying to the Lord.
I think they're praying to the Lord. I think they're seeking God, asking for help. All right. I think there is a desire, because it's a good thing it happens. Because when we get into chapter 5, things go south again.
They needed a leader.
Well, right, but God isn't gone.
Maybe,
God,
yeah, but maybe Adam and Eve weren't so-called doing their job. as
Right,
parents.
right,
So
right.
The children that are from them and the ones that get married, now all these kids from their families like, teach me something.
Yep.
So they want to learn.
Yep.
But somehow they got rid of the Lord and they want to learn from the best.
Yep.
Maybe they hear the stories how it was in the beginning with Cain and with Adam and Eve.
Right.
They start hearing those stories. They want life to be like that for them.
Right.
So maybe that's why we started calling on them.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Seeking, because they need an answer to their questions. They need a teacher. And that's not uncommon, throughout all of mankind. So this is where we wind up. So man has fallen and continues to fall. We see death and murder, lying, deceit, terrible things are happening. You do have people calling on the name of the Lord. You have wonderful things happening. The earth is being filled with mankind, as well as animal kind, plant kind. The earth is being filled rapidly. And then amazing things are going to happen. And so next time we get together, we're going to start learning about all the people who are now going to descend from Adam and Eve. And at the end of chapter 5, we're going to meet a man. And we're probably going to roll right into chapter 6. And go across and meet a man and get involved with an event that is probably the most amazing physical event on earth outside of the creation itself. Yep. We're going to go.
Look down here at the end of 5 and I saw Noah. I said, oh, it's got to be him.
Yeah, we're going to go sailing on a big ship. Right up my alley. All right, any questions?
I wish we could find out for sure if these women that came into from wherever, we're from Adam and Eve,
Right.
or if God, because it doesn't say, or if God placed them from somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah,
It
No.
doesn't say.
No.
the things
I've
we
read it
don't
and
know.
read it. I'm looking for a hint, and there's no hints there.
I'm the same way, and I want to know more.
Just reread it,
Yeah.
and reread it, looking for that one word
Right.
he did, or he said, or he got, or
Right.
pick up, or gat, or something, and it's not there.
No, it's not. All right, guys.